Welcome to the Elk Grove Unified School District Virtual College Fair. We're so excited to have you participating in this event. We have some fantastic schools here with us today. My name is Nashira, and I will be your facilitator. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. This is just one of the many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the schedule on the website. This presentation is being recorded and will be available at strivescan.com/elk-grove. I'd now like to turn it over to the University of Nevada, who will be presenting on college survival tips.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this portion of the presentation about college survival tips, which is, I think, going to be a great lead into the evening events where you can talk a little bit more with other universities and whatnot. So my name is Shaylor. I am an admissions counselor with the University of Nevada, Reno. I will be here in a later evening session, but really we're not focusing on the University of Nevada here. We're going to be talking about just general survival tips, which I think is very applicable regardless of whether you attend Nevada, but really anywhere you're going to college. And I'm kind of just breaking this down in the steps. I'm making this pretty simple, easy to digest. Now, some of this you've probably heard, but hoping that I give you maybe a different perspective or different ideas about really what you can get from being in a college and being in that setting. First, getting involved. Now, you might see a few photos from, I think, a great movie that really represents kind of what college life can be, which is Pitch Perfect, because she does kind of come to college, Anna Kendrick's character, and doesn't really want to be there, isn't really quite sure what to do. So she does get involved, which I think is a great, really kind of metaphor or example of how that can really enrich your college experience and give you a lot of great opportunities. Lots of universities, regardless of size, even a really small private university, is going to have some sort of club or some sort of club fair that happens around those first few weeks of school, right when you move in. You're walking there with your roommates, and you kind of get a feel and a flavor for what campus is like, which is something I definitely highly recommend you to do. However, beyond clubs and organizations, because those are very integral to meeting people and feeling like you are a part of campus life, if you are able to work or you're interested in working, that I think is also a great way to get involved in your community as well. You can work on campus, which is excellent if you're a student, because walking from work to class with only 15 minutes in between is something you'll probably never get again once you graduate from university. So definitely look into that, and jobs. You can find a lot of other students who are also working, who are also having full-time class loads. And you really get an idea of maybe if you're in an area of interest that you're studying, do you like the work you're doing? Do you like the people that you're surrounded by? You can also just get involved in the community, whether you're volunteering or doing anything like that. So getting involved is, I think, really important all around. Definitely do that. Next step, which I think is kind of really partners well with getting involved, is getting to know the campus. So campus maps are really important. So I didn't graduate that long ago. I graduated college in 2019, but I was one of the few people who actually had a physical campus map in my hand on my first day, and I was wandering around, wondering where to go. For the most part, most people have it on their phones now, so you don't look quite like a freshman walking around wondering where you're going, but definitely keep an eye on that. Some universities might have the opportunity to tour your first set of classes, maybe at orientation. Maybe they have some sort of tour right when you move in and campus tour guides are walking you around. Or even if you're living on campus and you have a resident assistant, they might be able to kind of show you around campus. I promise that a university usually seems really big, really massive, really scary. But once you start to walk around and get an idea of, oh, this is where the education building is, or this is where most of the general education classes are, it becomes a lot smaller. I mean, some unique classes like UCLA is huge. That one's probably going to be a little bit more unique than if you're going to a small private college like St. Mary's in the Bay Area. It really just depends. But definitely make sure you go to campus and kind of get a feel for where everything is. Next, and this is very important, use your campus resources. A lot of times you're already paying for them, so you already have it included in your tuition and fees. And if you're not walking in and taking advantage of the tutoring, the health center that you may or may not have access to, you're kind of just giving the university money. So take advantage of the fact that you're paying for these resources and use them. So a lot of institutions have tutoring built in. And whether that means it's a peer that is tutoring you, like a upperclassman student who's already taken the class before you, maybe it's someone who's hired who maybe is more like an adult. Usually they're there and available for you. A lot of times if you live on campus as well, that can kind of be built into the way you're living. So you might have a tutor that lives on your same floor, and it might be able to help you and all of the other students living with you to study for a class or whatnot. A lot of universities might have writing assistants. Also, a lot of universities help you find a career or some sort of job or internship. So that is not something they say, all right, good luck. We hope that you get employed after graduation. They're actually actively making sure you have jobs before you graduate. So your resume is wonderful by the time you graduate, have your degree, and then you can go kind of figure out what you want to do after that. So there's usually a career studio, and likely there's some sort of career and internship fair that happens on campus, could be virtual. Lots of different clubs, like maybe there's a business club that hosts some sort of week of events where they're hosting a lot of different employers on campus. It's also worth noting what type of employers the city that you are going to school in has within the area. So if you want a small town college feel, but you still want a wealth of opportunities, you want to figure out what that balance looks like. Or if you want to be close to New York City, there's a ton of different universities in that area. So maybe location is going to be something that's really important to you as you're navigating that. And I would also like to say, one thing that I think is often overlooked is get your books cheap. This is a prime advice that I give to any student, any point in their college career. You don't have to buy expensive, new, sleek looking books from the student store on campus. In my experience, those are usually the most expensive books around. Definitely rent them. If you know someone who's taken the class before you, ask if you can use their book if they still have it. Sometimes there's an ebook version, so you don't even have to pay, which if you're into that, I myself love a good physical copy of a book in front of me. But if you want to just have access to the math book online, that's also a nice way to do that as well. And there are also a lot of different websites or organizations and companies that offer really cheap books to you that you can rent just for a semester. Usually shipping is free, and you can ship it back to them at the end of the semester for free as well. So Chegg is one that is definitely a great resource for that. Campus books. You might be surprised that Amazon has a lot of used books on there. I mean, well, maybe not surprised. That's where Amazon started. Amazon was a book organization, so they kind of still have those roots there. So definitely make sure to do that. In the college town you're going to, there might be a local bookstore that caters to students and offers cheaper books than maybe what you would find on campus or elsewhere. So this, I think, is definitely something to consider, because sometimes you can't kind of go around not having the book because that might be where your homework is. Or if you're in some sort of science class and you have to get a lab set up, like you have to have a coat, maybe you know someone else who has it. So always get very creative in ways that you can save money, like this. And Steph, I mean, again, I feel like you hear this a lot probably in your high school setting. Asking for help is so important, especially if you're going away and this is your first time away from home. A lot of times those first few weeks, really even that first year as a freshman, you're really navigating homesickness and how can you find your place in this new city? How are you away from your friends that you've known for most of your life? So mental health is very, very important. So don't overlook that. If you need to go home for a weekend because that's what's best for you, do that. If you want to talk to someone on campus, a lot of times a campus has some sort of counseling center. And again, you're likely already paying for that in your tuition and fees. Talk to them as well. So just know to put yourself first too. College can definitely feel like the next step. So you're out of high school and you feel like not only are you making your own schedule, but you might have this extra pressure of really succeeding because maybe you're surrounded by students who are pushing themselves as well. Just know how you work and what's best for you. I think that's very, very important. And if you need help, do not be afraid to ask for it, because I would say pretty much everyone on a university's campus is there because they love helping students, and they love it when you ask them questions. They love it when you really take advantage of the love and passion they have to help you grow. So just know that people on a university's campus is really there for you, and don't be afraid or shy to use those resources, because it's very important that you do so. And honestly, I didn't have a very long 45-minute presentation here because I thought that if you had some questions that you wanted to address, I'm assuming there are probably some seniors here in the crowd, but I'm also assuming there may be some juniors or below who are just sort of thinking about how is college going to be better than high school or something like that. This is a great opportunity to ask questions. So I am an admissions counselor, like I was saying. I was a student at a university. So if you have some questions about what that looks like, please drop them in the chat. I left ample time for that. So this is a great opportunity. You can ask these questions anonymously too, which is great. No questions coming through. Okay, well, I am going to come up with one of my own questions, which I think is very important to think about when you are going to a college presentation, which the idea is that you're going to some sort of session after this one. And the first one would be to think about what your ideal college looks like. And now all the things that I mentioned, something might have sort of stuck in your brain, like, you know what, I really want to go to a really big city because it's going to offer me access to a lot of different jobs or a career that I have an interest in the future. Or I was talking about the resources that we have on campus, or the different clubs and organizations I have. You know that you want to be a part of maybe a fraternity or sorority. You know that you want to go onto campus that has a really thriving esports club. Little things like that may be small to someone else, but might be really important to you. So I definitely encourage you to think about that when you're ever listening to a college presentation. Whatever really fits for you is going to be the best fit for you, because your friend might want to go to another college and they might not be interested in the college you're applying to, but really college is all about you, the student, and where your best fit is going to be. Right, you're still not any questions, just totally cool as well. I'll kind of leave, okay, we got one coming in. Yeah, so yeah, you got here a little late. We'll go back to those first 2 slides. I like to do these pretty casually and informally, so I'm all for this. Thank you for shouting out. So really, I kind of had this in different steps. So step 1 was getting involved, really looking at the ways to get involved on campus, whether that was a club or organization, whether that meant you were looking at what type of job opportunities that city offered, or what type of job opportunities were on campus, or if there is like the community aspect and where you're attending university, like the literal city where you were at. If there was a community you knew you wanted to be a part of, you wanted to get more involved, just like in an outside adventure sense, or you wanted to contribute to different philanthropic communities or organizations. That was really kind of the first one. This first one here is just the intro slide. So I'm assuming you weren't wanting that one. And the second one was really getting to know campus. And I think this also plays a large part when you're applying to a university, because feeling like you can see yourself on campus, you could see yourself walking from campus building A to campus building B is so important. If you just can't picture yourself on a university's campus, it's going to probably be hard for you to be a student there and kind of figure out where you fit in that space. So getting to know campus while you are a freshman, but also before, during the application process is super, super important. So those are really those first 2 slides. I hope that helped you a little bit there. Thanks for putting that in there. Because again, making this pretty casual. Do we have any other questions that you want to come on through? Oh, yay. Oh, this is a great question. So this question coming in, when entering college, like that first year, was it really difficult keeping up with the work compared to high school? And if so, or if not, How long did it take to get used to the workload that I was given at classes? It did definitely take some adjusting that first semester. And a large part is because you are like when I was a student, we make our own schedules. So if you are the type of person that is really diligent about, maybe you have a planner or you have sticky notes or you write something on your laptop or type it rather, however you do it now, that's going to carry on when you're a college student. It's going to be excellent because you kind of already know how to map out a day or make a schedule that works for you. For me, that was one of the more difficult parts. I had so much more free time than I was used to, which was crazy because you're not going to class all day, Monday through Friday, and you kind of end up only taking about maybe 5 classes spread out throughout Monday through Friday. So you might only have 2 classes a day, and you could have a class at 9 a.m. and you could have a class at 3 p.m. There's so much time you're just not really sure what to do with. So I think that first semester, even really the first year, students are kind of like, oh, I have so much time to study. I have so much time to do my homework. I have so much time to do all of these social events that I want to do. And then all of a sudden they realize they don't have as much time as maybe they thought. It's really about time management. So that's definitely the more difficult part. So I would just come up with a system where best works for you, how to navigate your day, how to organize that calendar, whether it's visual again, or you like having something physical like a planner. So yeah, I'm thinking about a semester or a year. If you're that person where it's going to take a year, that's okay too. All right, another good question. This is great because this is what I was envisioning. It was a lot more like Q&A. So is it a good idea to get a job on campus rather than off campus? So like, how is it accessible or whatnot? Okay, so essentially the question being, is it better to be off campus or on campus? And that's really up to kind of what you're looking for. The huge benefit of having an on-campus job is they're usually a little bit more flexible with your schedule. The on-campus employers they understand you're a student because they're employing you because you're a student on campus. That might mean they have to set a number of max hours you can have for the week. So they're not going to be overworking you, which is really nice because if you say, hey, I can only work 10 hours this week, they pretty much only give you those 10 hours, which is great because that way you don't get burned out and you know where your maximum limit is. And again, it's also flexible when you're a student on campus. If you get off of work at 3 and you have a class at 3:30, you don't have to worry about driving or anything like that. You can casually make your way to class. Off-campus jobs are great if you really want to do a little bit more networking in the community. You want to get an understanding of what it's like to live in the city and work in the city. I think it'd be cool if you can do both. If you don't do either, great, because I understand a lot of students are focusing a lot of time on their school. Some students do have to work at the same time. So whatever works best for you is really what I would say. All right. What's your opinion on student loans and going to college out of state? All right. Well, considering I'm representing an out-of-state university, I'm going to tell you that you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to go out of state. There's a lot of different ways to save money. And if taking out student loans is the one way to do it, that's okay. There is a difference between the type of loans you can take out. So just be mindful about that. Always ask an admissions counselor questions, or maybe if there's a financial aid advisor you have access to. A lot of universities are accessible to incoming students because they want to make sure you know what you're paying and you know what you're getting. As far as going out of state, any university part of the Western Undergraduate Exchange has a lot of great opportunities to save money. It's a regional tuition discount program where you, as a California high school graduate, the idea is you'll be graduating from high school here, can go to a lot of 2 to 4 year public institutions within all of the Western states. So it includes the Dakotas, it includes Alaska and Hawaii, Nevada, Washington, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, for example. And if you meet the qualifications, on average, you save about $12,000 per year in tuition. So University of Nevada, Reno is one. So if you do come to my session, maybe you can learn a little bit more about it. But a lot of other universities like University of Arizona, University of New Mexico are a part of WUI, for example, or like NAU or Boise State. All right, we got lots of questions coming in. Great. Okay, what is typically the commitment for a club on campus? It really varies. So there are some clubs that are way more casual. So my freshman year, I was a part of the Outdoor Adventure Club, and we really didn't do anything beyond go on outdoor adventures together. So in the winter, we went sledding in Lake Tahoe. In the spring, we went spelunking through some caves. But that was all on my own time. Like if I wanted to do what I could, it wasn't a requirement. So that was a club that was more for being social and meeting people and getting outdoors. I was also part of Nevada Student Ambassadors, which is where I was a student tour guide on campus. And that club had a lot more involved because as a representative of the university, I just had to be a little bit more active and give a little bit more of my time and be a little bit more dedicated to the club. So it depends on the club that you're a part of. Greek life, like if you're in a fraternity or a sorority, they're usually a little bit more demanding of your time because typically you're a part of some sort of philanthropic group that you're doing some sort of charity work for, or there might be a certain number of events you have to attend in order to be an active member. So it really depends on the club. All right, do you know what a double major is? So is it something that stands out like long-term after graduating? So when you're coming to college, there are like a lot of terms that are thrown out. So there's a lot of acronyms, education. So always ask these questions. This is great. So there are things like a double major, and double major is a little bit different from if you're getting like a dual degree. So if you have double majors, like I was a double major at the university, I had an international affairs and Spanish double major. And double major is a sense that you get two that are both, I got 2 bachelors of arts. So if you get 2 bachelors of sciences, that's a double major. That's kind of where that differentiation is. A dual degree is if I, for example, got a degree in a bachelor's of science, like maybe I was a biology degree and I also got a Spanish degree, which is bachelor's of arts. So just a little bit different there. I don't want to go too deep in that. I don't want to get too confusing, but really what stands out there and why students choose to do it is they're really passionate and interested in something, and studying a language maybe and also doing a science looks great when you're applying to medical school. It also could show your employer, or maybe if you're applying to professional school or a graduate program, that you went the extra mile, you pushed yourself a little bit, and maybe you had more interdisciplinary work. Interdisciplinary meaning you're not only were just studying the visual and performing arts, but you're also doing STEM like science, technology, engineering, and math. So it really kind of depends. But there's no right or wrong answers. If you decide just to do one major, that's totally okay too. Maybe that's because you're really involved in clubs. You do a lot of work. There's a lot of students, if you have to work, maybe you're not able to pick up the 2 majors. So it really depends on your own, individual circumstance of what works best for you. All right. Okay, so this question kind of like, is food and board really expensive? So like I didn't go with board, would it help lower my cost? Okay, good question. So we're gonna go in, you'll probably hear a lot of universities maybe talk about price in their 6 minutes tonight. Just for starters, when anyone talks about tuition is just the cost of classes. It's only those classes you're taking for a major. So whenever someone says tuition is X amount of money, that's great. But always ask them how much housing is, how much room and board is, if that's included, if they have any other additional fees that their students pay, if their student is part of maybe like a mandatory health insurance, or if they include books and anything like that into your price. So just a good, tip when applying to universities is ask for the total cost of attendance. And for the most part, room and board is usually applied in housing. So usually someone says housing fee, they're talking about the room that you're going to get, and also maybe about your meal plan or how you're going to get your food. It kind of depends on where you're going and how much living on campus would cost. So it really depends. For the most part, there are a lot of states that aren't as expensive as California, whether you're living off campus or on campus. So a lot of out-of-state options, maybe not as expensive as staying on campus at a UC or a CSU. So it really depends. I mean, so if you're not living on, because you're asking like, if you didn't want to live on campus, if you didn't go with board, would it lower my cost? It depends. because if you're living in Southern California and you're not living on campus, living in an off-campus space is still going to be relatively expensive. And the cost of food kind of varies at different places too. So these are all actually great things to start thinking about when you're thinking about where you're attending university. If you're attending somewhere that's just naturally a little bit more cheaper, that is going to make your overall costs a little bit cheaper as well. So that's kind of a vague answer, but it really just depends. And it's a great question to ask the college that you are interested in. This is great. I wish I could see your faces, because when I answer these questions, I feel like I'm just talking to myself in my room, but I'm hoping this is helping. Do we have any other questions? Okay. If we don't have any more questions, I'm not going to make you stare at me on the screen, and I'll give you some time in between the next session. So you're gonna have maybe you have a little more extra time. So I'll kind of hand it over to Nashira, and I'll let her do any kind of closing remarks. But first, thank you so much for being here and asking these really, really wonderful questions. Ask these questions to the universities you see tonight. So hopefully I'll see you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. When this window closes, there'll be a very quick 5-question survey, and we'd appreciate any feedback that you have for us. We encourage you to check back to the schedule. And sign up for more sessions. You'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings at strivescan.com/elk-grove. Thank you so much. Have a great one.